Friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. In this episode, we're exploring the relationship between coffee and roast level. Now, every coffee is going to taste differently at different roast levels, and that does apply for extremes, such as darker roasted coffees and coffees that are sitting much lighter on the spectrum. Now, oftentimes we think of dark roasted coffee as coffees that are just going to taste chocolatey, earthy, and maybe roasty. And what we've discovered is that's not always the case. And that's what we're exploring in this episode. Now, before we jump into this episode, I do want to say is that there's a no label dial-in batch that was dropped this morning as the episode aired. For those of you, if you know, you know. This is a Sebastian Ramirez Colombian Pink Bourbon. It's a really nice, lovely coffee. There's not very many bags available. It's heavily discounted for the no-label dial-in batch. If you don't know about it, you'll find more information on our website. But let's get into this. As we always have been doing for the last 205 episodes, let's pour some Batchy.
Yes, let's do it.
While Sergi pours some Batchy, we have a few new coffees coming in here soon. Just picked up some Fresh Harvest Ethiopia that's coming in the near future, and then a coffee from Sebastian Ramirez from Finca El Placer. I know when we bought the coffee from Sebastian, I knew Sebastian, familiar producer out of Colombia, but then I heard his farm is Finca El Placer, which I was like, I didn't know, and I've heard that. So it's a fun coffee. It's interesting. We're dialing it in right now. So yeah, good stuff on the way.
I'm excited for it. It's
yeah,
gonna be a good time.
So
oh, did we cup this coffee?
what?
Did we cup this coffee
Right now?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. It's a fairly light roasted coffee. No,
Not. I guess depends. It's not fairly. It's not fairly
for
light
a.
roasted.
I mean, okay. I think if you would measure it, it'd be like a 112, 110.
I measured this and it was a 105.
105.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, weird. The reason I said that is because it kind of tastes like it has that very light body. It's not thin, but it's very light bodied. It doesn't have the full blown punchiness that I feel like should be in this cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm like, oh, okay.
There's it's juicy. It's light. It's kind of zippy.
But it's also slightly muted, don't you think?
Slightly. I think it could use a little bit more rest. I think.
Oh, that could be.
It tastes slightly like it's still rested. I think this is actually coming up on 3 weeks. But it's got this like, I don't know.
It's like lemony in a good way, but I'm like, I feel like I want more out of it.
Yeah. It could use, I don't know, something like softer and more,
Totally.
not perfumey, but softer and more, I don't know, just flavor forward.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I mean, I like the delicacy of it. Yeah, there's some
cooling.
interesting. It's juiciness.
It's cooling, kind of nice.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I like the aftertaste. It has more on the aftertaste than it actually does on the front end. Like when you, right before drinking, when you smell it, it like doesn't have that much complexity, but the aftertaste has a little more.
Yeah, like a currant. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
The tartness.
Yeah, there's a slight tartness going on. At least I'm getting that.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little bit of, actually reminds me of like some Kenya. Like it's got like a little bit of fruit, but then it's got that like not the savoriness, but it's got the sweetness that you get from most Kenyans, which is more, I don't know,
maybe
like a cooked
not
fruit.
Not a SL28 though.
No.
Like maybe a Ruru 11 or something that's like.
This is a washed Ethiopia Guji. This is from a coffee from Prodigal. So
what is the varietal?
Whatever, it's heirloom or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
just a heirloom varietal.
Just a heirloom
number
varietal. Yeah.
Yep.
So, not too bad. It's solid.
Another fellow for the win. Fellow Aiden for the win.
Yeah.
I always like that.
This podcast episode is coming from kind of a misconception or something that I've changed my perspective on over the years. I think if you were to ask me 2-3 years ago, 4+ years ago, I would say that most dark roast coffees taste the same. Like you cannot get anything very much, you can't get very much complexity or nuance out of a dark roast coffee. And that's, partially there's some truth in what we'll unpack that. And it's also why most people actually do gravitate towards light roast, because after drinking dark roast, maybe that's something you grew up on, maybe it's something you're just regularly consuming. You stumble across this light roast and you're like, holy cow, like literally in Ethiopia, Guji, and you're like, why can coffee taste good and interesting and not one-dimensional and is bright and it's reminiscent of maybe fruit, florals, or whatever. And on the flip side, I think my perspective has changed a lot on also kind of the lighter and plus maybe Nordic style roasts that are a little pushing lightness. Not quite, ultra lights, but maybe this could be relevant to that as well. But it's this perspective that all Nordic coffees will just taste hay-like or underdeveloped, or if it's, a very light roasted coffee, all you're going to get is just lemon, Granny Smith apple.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be an acid bomb. I mean, the classic El Liminar and Guat. That's what I thought. And then I think over the last maybe year, pretty much over the last year, I think my perspective has shifted quite a bit on that. So, and then actually in this conversation, it's probably a podcast for another time, but it's, it just escaped my head. It'll come back to me.
No, I totally agree. I think there are a lot of, and it's actually not wrong for the ideas that have developed for certain roast profiles. And most people automatically gravitate towards the baseline that coffees that are roasted darker tend to lean towards flavor notes that are like chocolatey and caramelly. Like that is fairly a common assumption for a reason.
By the way, you're literally saying what came to mind, what I forgot. So keep going.
Perfect. Yeah. And with that, like coffees that are roasted light, like the pendulum swing is like, oh, they're going to be just either you love a acid bomb and like just hella bright, but also has complexity. And then people on one side of the spectrum usually swing to the other one and then develop these ideas throughout that swing going back and forth. Mm-hmm. But I think within that, I also think both sides, like you said, get a bad rep for their own challenges that they encounter in the process, in the roasting process, and then the extracting process. Because you and I have talked about this on the podcast before. Back in the day, especially specialty shops, you would walk in and people would actually take pride in like a shot of espresso that was sour. And that was like the only way they could combine.
What a day to be alive.
Yeah, they could combine this like desire for something that wasn't dark roast.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? Or people avoiding, I guess, especially when I was working in the cafe, people avoiding like sour coffees and asking for a ristretto because their idea of a strong, bitter coffee, like a coffee that will slap you silly, is something that is like super thick and chocolatey and roasty.
Yeah.
But I think within all of that, like things, especially with how times have changed around roasting, we're seeing that both concepts are meeting closer in the middle. And on the previous episode, we talked about how light roasting is becoming more approachable and more familiar within the broader general coffee community. But I also think like dark roast in itself, like you're saying, is still becoming more complex, for lack of better terms. And I think that's one of the things we need to unpack is like, what does it mean to have a coffee, and why can a coffee that's roasted darker or maybe on the medium to dark side that has complexity?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to touch upon a little bit what you mentioned in the beginning, that those kind of biases or those stereotypes of, the extremities, they're there for a reason. And it still holds true.
Yes, totally.
Where I'm coming from is that I think the longer you are in the industry, and we talked about this already on a recent podcast, that you start to see things as not necessarily as black and white. There's a lot more nuance. And so you start to agree with the stereotypes, but then have buts and ifs behind every stereotype almost, because it's hard to have a blanket statement that is true across the board. And if you're just, a very fun quote that I like is like, a narrative with no nuance is propaganda.
Yeah.
And that's 100% what I think. Like, if you think all dark roast taste this way, well, you're just pushing some propaganda of your, light roast nuance, and same. And I think on the flip side as well. So that all being said, we can maybe start with dark roast and then kind of transition to kind of the more on the lighter side. But something that we've realized is, we have a few folks that buy a lot of coffee from us, and has kind of pushed us to, serve them some darker roasts.
You won't see it on our website.
You won't see it on the website, but if you like DM me, I can slide you a bag on
as
the
long
counter.
as you buy our ultralight roast. And then we'll ship you a little baggie.
But yeah, like, it was interesting because we've taken our Jorge Mendes El Panal, which is just a really awesome crowd pleaser that's on our site year round. We actually sold out of it, unfortunately, but it's coming back, fresh harvest in a month or so. But when we started first doing some darker roasts of that, I remember cupping it and tasting it, and I'm like, why does this still have that zippiness that the Jorge Mendes has? Like, it's got that Huehue Tenango, like, acidity that is just like, it's zippy. It's in your face. It's like tangy. It's got lemon, bright apple. It's got that, like, it's got like a classic Huehue profile. And my concept was, my preconceived notion was like, oh, if you roast it just dark enough, that won't be present. Well, we didn't roast it like insane, like Starbucks dark.
It's not a second crack.
It's not second
there.
crack.
Yeah.
But I was cupping it. I'm like, oh, I'm still getting that. I'm still getting some grape on it. I'm getting some apple on it. It's still there. And then we did a dark roast with, a Mira Classic used to be, like the Indonesia Desitol Juke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dang. Like, this definitely has more like earthier tones, chocolatier tones, but we're getting some fruit.
Yeah, especially dark cherry.
Yeah.
Would pop quite a bit. You would go from like dark fruits to like actually like this almost like a bigger, jammier dark cherry, like in dark, like dark chocolate and dark cherry combined.
And very, very, very nicely.
Yeah.
Not to say that it was like something I will drink every day.
Yeah.
But it was like very, like, I'm like, this part of the flavor, whole flavor is nice. And then like, doing like a darker roast, more developed roast of the Via Toro that we have right now. Also interesting, because I'm like, this has nuance. And I think if you drop below like an 85 on a score, where you're kind of getting more to commodity, more or less complexity in the cup, I think, yes, if you send those darker roasts, a lot of that stuff will wash out and will become, hey, cool, this tastes like chocolate, a little bit of smokiness, roastiness. That's great. But I do think that you can have nuanced and complex dark roasts.
Of course. Yeah.
And it might not be on the level of like a light roast because that's just a theory. That's just theory of roasting. The darker you roast, you're going to lose the volatile flavors.
Yeah.
That's like, there's no way around it.
Yeah. Totally.
But man, could you still maintain some nice volatile flavors and some interest? 100%.
Yeah. And it's very similar to, this reference has been used a lot, but when you're cooking a steak, like you can't expect a well done steak to have a little blood in it. Well, it's well done, right? And it's same thing in coffee. It's like, if the goal is to achieve flavors that are more developed without using this idea of light versus dark, but just talking about pushing development. And again, not talking about DTR when I said development. I'm talking about the process of roasting of the actual coffee seed. When you're pushing it a little bit farther along, you are developing flavors that you wouldn't have if you didn't push it as far. But that also means there is a spectrum of where you're losing some of that like high end, and you're combining it with more of the low end. And with like the Desitola Juke, when it changes in that flavor, I know like vividly from like our quote unquote lighter roasts to our more developed roasts, the change of flavor is it's not only a pendulum swing where it went from like having a lot of acidity to less acidity. That happened, but the acidity itself transformed. And then we got a lot of the undertones of like more of the earthy and the tobacco essence of it with those roast characteristics that actually worked with the acidity for the desired purpose again. And that's the frame of reference. I think the frame of reference in this conversation is missed a lot. It's like, I side note is like, I really like how Lance talks about these things, like in his videos, because he does talk about the fact, like he doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater when he's talking about liking more developed coffees. He's like, yeah, they have their place. I like them. Do I drink them every day? No, but sometimes I'll pull a more compressed shot with more developed flavors, and it suits its purpose. And you don't have to lose all of those concepts that you like in dark roast to combine with the acidity of something that's considered more light roast. And that is very much so dependent on like green coffee that you said. I think a coffee that's on the lower side, because when we're talking about score quality is very much so a definition of what flavor is. When we talk about a quality of a coffee, we're actually talking about the flavor of the coffee. What does it taste like? And when you're trying to, I think the flip side of this, when I've tried to roast a coffee that wasn't at 85 or above or lower and try to make it a light roast, I actually did a major disservice to that coffee, and it did not taste good. Like just think about, maybe those coffees were still 85, but remember there was a certain coffee that I had to roast for a certain person. I'm not going to talk about who and when and why. And it wasn't a coffee that we sold, and I roasted it too light. And after we submitted the coffee to them, I was like, dude, I made a mistake, because I leaned on the fact that roasting it lighter would actually produce more desired complexity when it didn't. It actually made the coffee not as pleasurable, and it should have been developed a little bit more.
Gotcha. Yeah. Totally. And so, I mean, in some other world, could dark roast taste much better than it is? I think so. I think oftentimes, most roasters resort to just sending something lower tier for dark roast, unfortunately. I get why. There's some business reasons behind that.
Totally.
But could it taste better than it is now? Probably. I mean, again, like what you said, like sourcing matters a lot. So we don't often think about sourcing for dark roasts, but I think there's some merit to it. There's some value to it. I think on the flip side also, going back into like light roasted coffee, where I've always thought like, man, if you have a coffee developed to this color, about this color reading, slightly on the lighter side, Nordic side, that you're just going to end up with a coffee that either tastes, underdeveloped, grassy, hay-like, and just very bright with little to no body. It's just going to be really bright, just an acid bomb. And something I've realized is that is not the case. And the same factors apply for this as well, is that sourcing matters. And so the crux of this whole conversation is literally that, like, roast levels paired with different coffees that you're sourcing really do impact how the taste, what the taste ends up being, depending on that range of the spectrum of roast development. If that makes sense.
Totally.
So like you can have a lighter roasted coffee, but if the coffee itself has more body, has more punch, has more intensity behind it, then you can have two coffees roasted to the same development and color, but one can taste very silky, thin, tea-like, and then you can have one coffee that tastes big, bold, expressive, and just like round.
Yep.
And if you're thinking like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm talking about like something that's very like on the lighter side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because usually, oftentimes, the light approach will strip the coffee of body. I mean, like I said, like there's some truth to these stereotypes.
Yeah.
It'll strip the coffee of maybe syrupy mouthfeels or sweetness.
Yeah.
Because roasting is acidity to bitterness, and the sweetness happens on the bitterness, and you need to develop that far. So that's why this was such an epiphany moment, because I'm like, oh wait, so actually if you just source different coffees to match your roasting style, you can still get some of the stuff that we like from a slightly more developed roast. We can still hold on to those, but still get that the beauty or the goodness of going a little lighter, if that makes sense.
No, totally.
So that was, that's just been an epiphany moment.
Yep. Totally makes sense, especially with some of the fluke roasts that we recently have. Like I'm still drinking that ultralight Gasca Brothers, and like I rarely am like hyper obsessed over a very, very ultralight. I do enjoy them, but rarely. It's more on the light. Like I love light roasted coffees. Ultralight sometimes it's hit or miss for me.
That Gasca wasn't an ultralight.
It wasn't.
No.
It was like what?
But it was
on that scale.
It was definitely teetering towards there.
Towards that. And I brewed it on the Aiden before work one day, and I was completely fascinated by how much body it had, how much texture it had. Some of the things that I don't like in the very, very light roasted coffees is that they don't have texture and they don't have enough body for my desire. Not even talking about like sweetness. Like sometimes they just don't have enough texture. They kind of taste hollow. This coffee just was big. It was juicy. And it was on the scale of like I said, like lighter than what I normally drink.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially in comparison to the coffee we just drank right now.
Yeah,
like you know what I mean.
It was significantly
lighter than this.
Yeah.
And like I feel like Prodigal is a very good example of light roasted coffee that I enjoy.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And this surprised me. And that coffee and that experiment in itself, that error in itself, challenged my perspective of assuming that if a coffee reads a certain number, it's going to taste hay-like, it's not going to have body, and it's just going to have way too much acidity. And that coffee didn't. And I know we've like kind of steered away from using the word sweetness a lot, because sweetness sometimes tends towards the more developed side of things. But I would say that very light roast of Gasca Brothers was very sweet.
Yep.
And because the acidity that it had, like you said, in the green was developed in a way that gave it that appearance of sweetness and complexity that made the cup very enjoyable for me.
I think cupping it, I was like, these roasts spec-wise, this recipe should not taste like this. And I think the Gasca Brothers and the Jose Lasso, maybe there's something in the processing. I think they're similar where you can push that roast lighter and there's still plenty of sweetness that keeps cutting through.
Yeah.
Where on the flip side, I think like the Ildefonso is kind of different, where if you push it lighter, then you tap into that really bright Colombian acidity where it's just
so different.
It's zippy, it's tangy, it's you know. So that's
I'm gonna just add in comparison. In the same way, I would not push our Jorge Mendes that light.
Yes.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And if I would have said, hey, this coffee is underdeveloped.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the challenge, and also like the beauty of roasting coffee is the fact that there is no one set number that tastes excellent for all coffees. Like you can't just have like a one like color reading and all of these light roasts are going to taste identically properly developed.
Yeah.
You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And I think for us, the good thing is like we've aimed towards a certain level of roast, but also the way we approach roasting and in general, especially with how weight loss plays a big role in development, like every coffee has its unique quote unquote level in general as a profile.
Yeah, I think yeah, maybe this is contrary to what you're saying. Maybe it's in the ballpark, but I still do think though, like if you prefer a certain kind of development level, there's a reason why you do enjoy a certain development level. That's what I've learned about my preferences over the last year. But also, and there's a reason why. It's probably because it comes with like a general stereotype. A general like flavor profile.
Yeah, totally.
That is definitely present.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, especially on those extremes, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to get this flavor profile and nothing else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No,
You're not
I totally
pigeonholing
agree with
yourself
that.
to, hey, all the coffees at this development level are going to taste this way. It's like, I mean, literally the point of this conversation is to say, no, you can roast coffees to this development level. And there's actually like a pretty big spectrum of the flavor profile
development. Yeah, exactly.
Of like the kind of flavor profiles that are coming through. And same with dark roast.
Yep.
Not everything's, everything roasted to 425, is not going to taste roasty, smoky, chocolate with
or have
nuance.
no acidity.
Yeah, have no acidity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
totally.
the point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because I don't think you would, I mean, knowing your flavor preferences, I don't think you would like a 84 point coffee roasted to like 115 roast level.
Yeah.
And I know for people listening, this might be like abstract numbers, but like a 115 is considered fairly light.
Yeah.
So you want to like a 84 point coffee roasted to 115. You might enjoy that coffee. You might not. You'll probably never, knowing your preferences, you'll never love that coffee.
Yeah.
But you might enjoy that coffee more if it was a 98.
Right.
Then, but you technically normally enjoy coffees that are roasted on the maybe 110 side.
Yeah.
So like that's why like sourcing the origin of the coffee, the processing of the coffee, and then how you roast that coffee to a certain level, all of that matters. And there's not one stereotype to say, again, like just because you roasted it to a 90, a geisha roasted to a 90, it's going to taste like X whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so that's the point. So I totally agree. I think you're saying the same thing I was saying, just in different words.
100%. Well, friends, I think that was an interesting conversation to have. I think we went way more in the weeds than I thought actually on that conversation, which hopefully you guys enjoyed. But that's it. Some roaster talk, some flavor talk. I think there's some nuggets for roasters, but also, folks drinking coffee at home, because this is very flavor driven and oriented. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. And always say, remember, reflect what's good.